Hi everybody, welcome to another episode with myself and Stephen. Got an interesting one here because this one's Stephen's idea, but I came up with the title. So if you think it's a crap title, unfortunately that's on me, but it'll still be a good topic. So these are always based on things that have happened in the last few weeks, and this one we are calling Actions Speak Louder Than Waffle, which is a cunning play on words, which I'm feeling quite smug about, but you guys all might cringe at. So when we talk about that, though, what are we saying when we're saying take action? Because really we're saying actions speak louder than talk at work. You've obviously got some ideas in mind that have brought this up to talk about, so hit me with it.
Yeah, so, and this is not just about work or leadership, it's also in life as well. I think we often, as humans, talk a lot about stuff. We talk to various different people. We procrastinate a lot. We think a lot, overthink a lot. And really, we need to take action. And sometimes that's about being brave, but sometimes that's about saying, fast forwarding and saying, well, where do I want to get to? What is it that I want? And when you start asking yourself those real, direct, big questions, that's you're then on a journey to actually doing something about it and taking action. And I work with lots of various different businesses and lots of people, and one of the things that's hard for them to do sometimes is actually take action. The discussion just lasts for way too long. And sometimes what happens with that is you just go round and round in circles. And actually, what I want to share with people on the podcast is it's okay to take action. And it's okay to take action. And maybe you might not get all of it right, but you've made a start and you've taken the action rather than talk, which is obviously really important to talk and have conversation. But sometimes what you're doing is you're wasting time. Secondly, you're not being fluid enough because it stop, because that's what talk sometimes does. It ends up making you stop and you end up talking yourself out of why you should do something. So it's, for me, it's about taking that action that then leads to other things and not being afraid to take that action. So, 100%, sometimes it's time to stop and say, right, well, our meeting, what are we going to do? What are the actions that we're going to take? I'll even go as far to say, if you have a meeting and all you have away from the meeting is a list of actions, that can be a huge positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense, because I think one of the first things that comes to mind there is the reason that there's all the talk is because people, businesses, whatever it might be, are unsure. And that's the point, because you're looking to do something new, something different. So just be reassured that if you feel a bit uncomfortable about it, or it feels a bit scary or a bit wrong, that's how it's supposed to feel. And that's probably the big blocker, because you're used to feeling sure about something. And if you don't have, if that feeling is absence, and collectively around the table of 2 of you, 20 of you, however many it is, if that's not there, then that's why you're just, well, we'll go around it again and we'll just talk until somebody's willing to give us the confidence that it's going to work. The second thing that I think of is, in terms of meetings, one of the little tricks that I like to add in is most meetings have an agenda of some type, and the classic is they have AOB at the end. And so we'll go through our meeting, and then we're getting close to the end, and then someone comes up with either a brilliant point or a point that we really didn't need at this meeting. So I always ask people to put AOB at the beginning of the meeting, because everybody's come to the meeting aware of the agenda. So if they've got any other business that they didn't think to bring up ahead of it, they should check it, because it might be the right thing to bring up in that meeting. The chances is it probably won't be. And the chances are, is it's something they want to bring up, they're going to try and segue it in earlier, which is how we get distracted in meetings. So if we give everybody the opportunity right at the beginning to say, I'd like to talk about this, the so-called chair, depending on how formal you are, can say, oh yeah, that's a great point, we'll add that to next agenda, or no, you're right, that's so valuable, we need to put that on today's agenda and we'll make time for it. So there's also the structure of meetings, I think, is underrated. Now, many years ago I worked in local authority, so I'm well aware of how to structure meetings. Now, you would argue there's a lot of meetings for meeting's sake there, but they are well.
You said it.
Yeah, they are well run when they have a strong chair. We would train chairs and things. You know, bear in mind, most of these people, these meetings are run by counsellors who that's not their day job, so they would be given training. And I've seen some exceptionally well run meetings. So that's the another thing important is, I think sometimes we'll just organise a meeting. But how do you run meetings? There's a training need when it comes to running a meeting. Running a meeting effectively is an art. It's a skill. So yeah, there's sort of 2 or 3 things that immediately jump to mind there about enabling taking action.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So what do you think?
Yeah, the thing that jumped out there was accountability. So I wonder sometimes whether the reason why the actions don't get driven out is because no one's really taken accountability for it, and it's easy just to accept that, expect someone else is going to take accountability and responsibility. So I guess that's sometimes why you don't get to the action. And I guess one of the things you talked about there was training, and I wonder sometimes whether in organisations that people don't feel confident enough to maybe talk about something that they don't feel comfortable with, and that might be why the action doesn't get driven through, because actually there's a training need there and a capability need, which we sometimes don't always talk about. And for me, it's, if you want your business to run smoother, if you want your business to really drive things out, then action needs to happen.
Yep.
And the more action that happens, the more responsibility and accountability people within the organisation taking. And the same in life. If you don't take action, if you don't, do things, you can end up going in reverse.
Yeah.
Exactly the same principle, that actually sometimes you've got to think about, what am I going to do? And I often say to people, reverse it, what do you think? What are you going to do? What am I going to do, what am I going to do to make a difference on this? What am I going to do differently to change the outcome?
Yeah.
What action am I going to take in order to drive out this end goal? And I absolutely 100% believe that it is a real issue within business environments and in life sometimes, that we're not prepared, or we don't think about the action. We're just chatting, conversation, and round and round and round and round. Yeah, but what are the actions? When you walk outside of that door, what are you now going to do?
Yep.
Otherwise, that whole hour or that hour and a half or that 2 hours, God forbid you're in a meeting for 2 hours, but hey, some people do it. And why, I don't know. If you're in a meeting for 2 hours and you go out and there's no, what are you going to do based on that time? Then you've just basically wasted 2 hours or an hour, whatever it is. I know that sounds quite harsh, but I'm really helping people to say, let's get a little bit more, inject a bit of pace into that. Let's be clear about what it is we're going to do based on that meeting or that conversation.
Yeah, well, if you think, for example, great thing here is if you are in long meetings, say 2-hour meetings or something like that, and you're not energized by them, feel it's okay to challenge, because something's not quite right there. There are some people who just love to be in those environments, but they're not necessarily in them for the right reasons, because if it's not effective, then perhaps there's an opportunity to change. With you talking about action, obviously anyone who's worked with me knows that I wax lyrically about the book The Slight Edge, which if you're watching this by video is behind my left shoulder now, by a guy called Jeff Olson. It's companion book for me, Atomic Habits by James Clear, all about the power of action. So obviously that talks about it in a positive vein in the main, but if you continuously don't take action, there's this, visualize a curve of success. If you're taking daily small actions all the time, that is going to gradually and then quite quickly increase dramatically. Flip it around. If you're consistently not taking action, it may not impact you on day 1, may not do on day 3, day 30, day 90. But after a year of inactivity, you're going to notice that that curve go down, and then suddenly it kind of sort of falls quite rapidly off a cliff.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You might not be noticing a difference now, but over a 5-year period, a lack of activity is really going to impact you either on a personal level, on a family level, and a business. Whatever it might be, all the things that you do or don't do will have a massive impact. So, I'm 100% behind you on the taking action thing. And the similar thing with training, I think with training, in the right culture of an organization, that shouldn't be an issue for somebody to ask. So I think if people are, again, worried about asking or admitting that they're not very good at something. There's a wider issue. And I think if you're in an organization where people aren't asking you for any training, you should really have a good hard look at yourself, because the likelihood is they don't feel like they should be asking for it. And they might not specifically come out say I want training, but they might highlight weaknesses or
Sure.
challenges or problems which would be identified as training.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting any negativity, but you're feeling like you're not taking action, something's wrong with communication, because people don't feel like they can come forward and raise concerns. And we might be looking at a slight or even serious blame culture. There are all sorts of things. So this is actually true of quite a few things, because something as simple as meetings, for certainly us as an outsider looking in, we can tell quite a lot quite quickly as to what's going on. You can read the room, the body language is clear, the length of the meeting is important, the listening to the actions from the previous meeting, if there were any, and the actions and how they've been allocated at that meeting. From that one meeting, you can probably determine what sort of organisation you're working with, and how effective it is. Would you say that's fair?
No, absolutely. I think you can derive a lot from being in the room. I often call that being in the room. And I guess if you talked about a chair, someone needs to steer the meeting. And what I would say to drive out actions, if that's someone's sole job, to say, right, what's the action from that?
Yeah.
What we're going to do based on that? What do I need to put down so that we can go on to it? And rather than, I see some meetings where literally the note taker's just taking notes. And basically taking notes of what's been said, and really what we should be doing. It's not about the note takers, about what's been said. It's about what do we need to do to deal with what's been said. And that would be my tip. So I think there is some structural things you can do in a meeting setting that will help you be more action driven anyway. But then the other thing to that is, taking action means when you've got that list of things that need to be done, the action needs to be taken not the day or the 2 days before the meeting's going to happen, but you need to leave that meeting going, I need to get this dealt with before the next meeting. Because the other side to taking action is you have a whole list of actions, and then someone goes, I haven't been able to do that, we'll move it on to the next meeting. So again, there needs to be an element of discipline. And anyone listening to this, it might resonate with a lot of people, and some people might go, what the hell are they talking about? What this stares in the face of is being more productive. Because fundamentally, time is precious, right? And we don't have time. Having productive meetings where there's actions actually makes you more productive. So there's like you said, there's lots of things that comes off the back of this, whether that's building confidence, whether that's around training, whether that's better use of time, whether that's better use of prioritizing the actions, because then that comes into it as well. If the actions are prioritized, you've got a better chance and more realistic chance of achieving them before the next one. So yes, a lot of things come to mind there, and I do think it's one of those areas where I feel anyway quite passionate about, because I do think it can actually stifle a business if this isn't taken really seriously. And in life, it can make you stand still and not move forward because you're not taking action.
Yeah, and I think people can be a bit blasé. So I can picture some people that I've worked with in the past before we got a good, healthy relationship, listening to this, thinking, "Oh, for goodness' sake, really? Come on, it's not gonna make that much difference." And oh my word, can it? It's incredible. I have one client now who's sort of so gone full circle on this, as it were, that they've now hired an implementation manager. Now they are a tech-heavy firm, so it does need that. But this person is basically responsible to whip into shape those who aren't doing it, support those who are doing it, and report back to board very regularly on how things are going. And it is their job. They sink or swim based on the success of everybody else. So therefore, everybody else in the organisation knows this person is going to come around and want answers, because it is their job to make sure things don't stagnate. It's their job to go back to board for resource when there's a shortage. It's their job to realise that there's going to be a slippage in targets and timing, so there's no shocks. I mean, that is an expensive gig as well. They're having to pay this person a lot of money. But you think how much, whenever you do have a meeting, how much money is sitting around that table.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people think of it as a cost, but in actual fact, it's a saving. It's a spend to save. So you spend that money to save because you have people only coming to those meetings to deliver at shorter amounts of times
Yeah.
with greater information, because there's somebody coordinating all that in between the meetings, and potentially maybe that implementation manager even chairs it if they have the skill set for that, because they are there for one thing only, to make sure that we are still on top of the actions that we take. And it's a real powerful move. It's going to make a massive difference for them in the short term. It's quite painful because lots of things haven't been very well implemented. But so there's loads of things that are probably, if we went on for an hour, we could come up with a whole host more. So I think the real key here is, in a business environment in particular, if you're just casually having meetings and they're not structured and people don't know how to run them properly and they're not well minuted by actions only, you don't need to know what so and so said about so and so. What one line of thing was agreed and who has been agreed to do it.
Yeah.
And were they in the room? Have they accepted? Are they aware? Or is it just presumed that? So it needs clarity of communication afterwards, because someone who's been set in action might not even have been in the room.
Absolutely.
So have we been absolutely clear that we know that's happening? Because do they even know that that's now what's been agreed that they're going to do? You know, it's crazy to say them, but there'll be plenty of examples
absolutely.
where that doesn't happen. So, no, I think it's a really, really good one. It might not be the most exciting, but I think it would kind of be one of the most effective to get your hands on. So from my end, I feel like I've given my 2 pennies worth. How would you like to wrap that one up?
I would just say, don't be afraid to take the action. Don't be afraid to give it a deadline. And don't be afraid to take responsibility and put your hand up and go, yeah, I'll crack on, I'll do that. We can go around in circles with chat. And if you want to be productive, you need to take action.
Yeah, I suppose actually, although I did say it'd be your final word, I just suddenly think on that. If you're not hearing anybody else take the action and you're eager to do it, it might be because somebody just wants you to. You could really be doing everyone a favour if you genuinely feel you could take it on. And depending on your trajectory in your career, that might be the best thing you've ever done, is to just take the burden off the collective. So don't feel like you shouldn't, because the lack of people offering to do it probably means no one really wants to. And if you feel you can, chirp up, say, what's the worst that can happen? You find out that your face doesn't fit in the company you're in. That's the worst thing that can possibly be, isn't it? So sorry, I promise your last word and I've just gazumped you on it. Is there any final words? Or
No final words for me. It's one of those subjects where I think when you reflect and really go into it, you'll see the benefit of it 100%, and try it. I'm always, and as always, if anyone's got any feedback, then come this way.
Absolutely. Lovely. All right, a thought-provoking one, that. So thanks very much, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye now.